He was chasing HIV.
Wow.
Yeah, because the thing is, he felt like, and it was really cathartic and therapeutic, because the truth of the matter is, at the end of it, he found out that it wasn't his idea of wanting to catch HIV just on the surface. It was one, he didn't feel like he had the autonomy to control the narrative that he thought would be him.
Hey, what's going down? Welcome to another episode of the Connection to a podcast, where we connect you to everything business related. Now, I'm super excited for this episode, but I'm really super excited for this month. So it's going to be Pride Month this month, as you probably know. So we're celebrating everybody in the LGBT community, especially those that are making it happen in business. So today we're going to kick this episode off with our first guest of the month, which is my man, Ian Haddock. But I'm not going to steal his thunder, so I'm going to let him take it over and tell you all the amazing things that he's doing. So go ahead and take it over.
Absolutely. So my name is Ian Haddock. I normally go by Ian L. Haddock, so Google can find me. I have the privilege of leading the Normal Anomaly Initiative. We're a nonprofit organization based here in Houston, Texas, that really focuses on the forward mobility of Black queer people. We do that through direct services, advocacy, capacity building, and research, and we also do events. And so I'm super excited to be in this space with you. I, definitely follow your work, and so I'm honored to be in this space.
No, man, the honor is mine. It's funny. I've been following your journey just for the last few years and seeing all the different events you've been able to throw on and being published in different the Houston Chronicle and different things that's going on in Houston. So I'm excited for this conversation. But so it's a tongue twister. So I want you to say it one more time. The
Normal Anomaly Initiative.
The Normal Anomaly. It's the anomaly word for
right.
me.
And you did it that time.
I got it. The Normal Anomaly Initiative.
Yes.
So when you say the Normal Anomaly Initiative, what does that really mean to someone?
Yeah. So when you think about an anomaly, it's like this outcast or this difference. It is this person that, or it's generally not a person, and science is not a person. It's this thing that goes against the grain. It's different. And then normal, obviously, is like speaking to, societal norms, things that make us regular. And the goal of the Normal Anomaly Initiative is to make all these people that society deems abnormal or weird or different in whatever context, whether that's by ability or sexuality or gender identity, right? Like all those people that they think are abnormal, we want to normalize their stories. We want to change the narrative around like what it means to be a queer person, especially a Black queer person. And so it really comes from, originally we started off as a blog.
Internet blog
in 2016, and we did some digital storytelling work and all that kind of stuff. And at some point, I sat back and I was like, we're telling the stories, but we're not changing the narratives.
So what do you mean? Were you writing the blog, or who was writing the blog?
I was writing the blog originally.
So were you finding just different people in the community to write about, or how did the blog go, or how did it come about?
So actually, people would submit stories that they felt were anomalies.
So give me an example of anomalies.
So one of the stories that I was really interested in was about a bug chaser. So a bug chaser, it's a weird story, but a bug chaser is a person that on the surface seems to chase a disease or an infection. But really, when you go deeper, it's about the fact that society tells, especially a person of color, a queer person of color, that is male identifying, that they will contract HIV. So many of us have it implanted in our head that it's going to happen. Right. And so some people just say, well, if it's going to happen, it's going to be on my own terms. Right. And so there was a story, a guy that reached out with a story centering him being a bug chaser. Mm-hmm. And I wrote an article around that. So
what you mean? So how was he a bug chaser though? He was chasing
HIV.
He was chasing it?
He was chasing HIV.
Wow.
Yeah, because the thing is, he felt like, and it was really cathartic and therapeutic, because the truth of the matter is, at the end of it, he found out that it wasn't his idea of wanting to catch HIV just on the surface. It was one, he didn't feel like he had the autonomy to control the narrative that he thought would be him anyway, right? The inevitable, if you would.
Right.
But also it was about like finding why societal norms have depicted, you know, black gay men and queer people of color to be believed like this is just what's going to happen to you.
Right.
And that's not the story. And as a person who does this intersectional work, I don't often talk about my status, but I am HIV negative. Like I'm not living with HIV, and not as like not like to promote the fact that I did something right, because I did the same thing that people living with HIV do, right? But it's also to say like I'm also learning through this process. And as I learned, I was just like, hold on, we got to do more tangible things to impact the community that I exist in.
No, and it's funny, and first of all, applaud you for that and being able to do those tangible things. And I think even being able to take on this mission and, like you said, be negative, because automatically people probably all assume whatever they assume, which it can go either way, but just being able to say, hey, I don't care, I'm gonna kind of back this mission, this is what I believe. So applaud you for that. But I was reading and just kind of keeping up with your mission, and when you say tangible things, because I see you do different HIV drives, you do different testing, so what are some of the tangible things that you guys are doing and how can we get involved?
Yeah, so in terms of like our direct services for people that are at the intersection, we offer transportation services to and from doctor's appointment, to and from job interviews, employment, and we also offer employment services, and then we also offer a community burial fund. So I spoke about those last two, and really the other one too, because there are ways. So this is a business platform. Right. So, you know, if you're on here and you're open to, you know, queer people who are normal people, if you're open to queer people, you know, being employed, you know, by you, you know, come by, talk to us about the program that we have and what we're trying to facilitate in order, because the reality is when we look at all of the disparities, right? Whether it's health related, mental health related, ability related, or disability, however you look at it, all of the disparities point to poverty and homelessness, right? And economic disadvantage. And so like we want to impact that.
Right.
That sector. So that's one way people can be involved. And then also for our community burial fund, that is something that we got a little bit of money from a foundation, shout out to Texas Pride Impact Fund, but we got a little money from them, but really we're always having to raise money. This year so far, we've helped to bury 6 LGBT people here in Houston.
So what are you guys, like, is the fund just for particular people that may have passed away from HIV, or is it just in general? Or?
If you are either an LGBT person that had a family member that passed away, or you're a family that is burying an LGBT person, we'll give up to $1,000 in assistance to help try to make that burial happen if that person didn't have insurance or whatever the case may be. We give up to $1,000. And so all you have to do is either be LGBT and need the help, or be a LGBT person that is deceased.
Right. And yeah, that's a powerful mission. So what got you into this work? Like, where did it start?
Yeah, Black queer people saved my life.
What you
so
mean?
So, you know, the first thing that I always think about is, so I was a 16-year-old that was put out their parents' house for being queer.
Right.
And I'm from Texas City, Texas, originally. And so I came up to the big city that I was frequenting, you know, getting to know the queer culture.
Is that in Houston?
In Houston,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I came to Houston and I met several people who became mentors and father figures in my life, and, you know, literally stayed with them, you know.
Were they in the queer community as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So I literally lived with them for times between being homeless and things like that. So that's one way it saved my life. Number two, I got into this work by a complete accident, actually. So I was getting into a lot of trouble, and somebody offered me this group to come in and kind of like talk through it. Like, what are you dealing with? Why are you doing the things you're doing? And it was an intervention called Many Men, Many Voices, which is a public health evidence-based intervention. And it was at this drop-in center in Montrose Center. And not in Montrose Center, but in Montrose here in Houston. And I was just transformed. After I left the intervention, my chosen father figure, who's openly living with HIV, told me about his status. And all I could think about being so ignorant.
That was the first time he told you?
Yeah, that was the first time. Being so ignorant, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I ate after this person. I did this, I did that. I didn't know how HIV was passed, because you can't get it from eating after people. You can't get it from using the restroom after people. But in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, what does this mean for me?
Right.
But of course, in front of him, I'm just like, well, I'm going to support you. And are you going to die? And all this kind of stuff. And so I went on this journey of kind of like learning what this meant, based upon like this intervention and this person really sharing their heart with me. And before I knew it, I, found myself like in a frontline position, doing outreach work, figuring this thing out. And so I worked from, health specialist to community health worker, program coordinator, manager, director, and now I'm the executive director of my own organization.
So what organization did you start with? Because you didn't start with your own, did you?
No, I started at this organization. It was called Houston Area Community Services. It's called Avenue 360 now.
And that changed the game for you?
Changed the game for me. But I also realized as I was working, not specifically at Avenue 360, but I worked at like 6 different organizations, both locally and nationally. And what I realized is that there were a lot of gaps.
What you mean?
So, when you start getting grant funding, they have really specific deliverables. And if you don't watch out for your mission can shift really quickly when you start getting a lot of money in. So there's
like break it down for me. Hold on, what you mean? Like, so are you saying once you feel like some of the organizations, they can start getting money, the mission change? Or like, what do you mean once you get money?
So like, if your mission is to help, let's say our mission is to help Black queer people, right? And let's say we get a grant to build a clinic for Black queer people, right? And the grant, let's say our budget is $500,000, but the grant is for $1 million to build the clinic for Black queer people. So we build the clinic, and now guess where our focus is going to be? We're 100% on that clinic, because that clinic is going to bring us that $1 million, whereas everything else is bringing us 50,000 here, 100,000 here. And so it shifts your mission, and it creates gaps, because, for instance, if we're doing transportation and employment services, that may be only right now a fifth of our budget. If we get double our budget for the clinic, you think we're going to be fighting for a fifth of our budget?
Right. Hey, what's going down? I had to stop things really, really quick and ask you one question. What are you doing to grow your business online? Now, I know you listen to this podcast and you're getting all this information, but what are you really doing to make sure your business is growing online? Now, if you don't know, I'm a content strategist by trade, so I'm gonna have to ask you, are you using digital marketing? If not, I would love to talk to you about your online brand presence. I run Allen Multimedia. We're a full-service digital marketing agency that works with community-driven businesses. We're able to help you strategize your customer journey, maximize your social media results, and create content that turns into community, and we turn that community into sales. Now, if you want to learn more about how we're able to do this, I want you to go to workwithja.com and book an appointment, and I'll talk to you soon.
Versus having to rely on, let me write another grant. And we still got to write a lot of grants, because we ain't got a whole lot of unrestricted funds, but we got enough that we ain't got to worry.
Right. When you're running a nonprofit, is the only way to bring in income. What are all the ways to bring in income as a nonprofit?
All the ones I just told you about. No, I'm playing. No, seriously. You write grants for, your services, your programs, your projects. Then you can fundraise. You can do donor development. But also you can do what would be considered for-profit work as long as it goes right to the organization. So we do a lot of DEI work. We do a lot of DEI, sex positivity work. So we're going to be working with 5 or 6 organizations throughout this month, throughout Pride Month. And we're going to be delivering things like sex positivity training, LGBT training, diversity, equity, and inclusion training to these organizations. And when they pay us, that just goes right back into
the nonprofit.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's that makes sense. So you guys with nonprofits, it's always tricky. So do you get paid, or how do you?
I can't. I mean, I can't. I gotta live. I gotta live. Yeah. So yeah, you pay people salaries. Everybody gets a salary. So the goal is to. I don't do this to be poor. I tell people that all the time.
Right.
I don't. I believe in the work of nonprofit. I believe in the grassroots work. I believe it needs to be for us, by us. But I don't do this to be poor. Now, I don't expect from my nonprofit work specifically to get rich, but I live good. I'm a homeowner. I like nice stuff. I drive a decent car. It ain't nothing.
Yeah.
It ain't nothing.
Pull up.
Yeah. It ain't nothing crazy, but it's something that I'm proud of.
Right.
Because the other part to this is, as a Black queer person, often we're working from a deficit.
You can't just slide over that. What you mean by that? Break it down.
Well, there's a couple different thoughts with working from a deficit. Number one, in terms of our sense of marginalization and oppression, we're working from a deficit. But more specifically, when I'm talking about we working from a deficit, we work from the standpoint that if I do good, I can't do well. If I do good, like if I do things that make the world better, that make the impact, that touch people's lives, that give some tangible resources to people, I can't live well. Mm-hmm. And I just refuse to believe that that's the case.
Almost like the pastor mentality,
Well, and a lot of it is because of community, because of the pastor mentality.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, I've gotten in a lot of trouble because I don't live poor. I don't live crazy,
right.
But I don't live poor.
Right.
And it's because of that pastor mentality, though, right? Because there's this idea that because I, preside, if you would, over this group of people, and these group of people are marginalized and they're oppressed and they need things and they need services, then I need to be a sheep amongst sheep.
Right.
And this is the truth of the matter is the work that I do is not to keep people poor. I'm not interested in people being poor.
Right.
Right? Like I'm doing this work because my belief is, hopefully, I don't completely believe it's true, but I'm believing that somebody, at least some people, that if I do my work well, will have the same type of success story. Right. I didn't go, I'll share this because I've looked at your platform and I want to respect your platform. But right. when I'm talking about where I come from, when I said I was getting into a lot of crazy stuff, I'm talking about prostitution and homelessness, right?
Yeah.
So I come from that to here. Yeah. So my story is a testament to if community believes in you and community, impacts you and gives you these resources and tries to be a confidant and a support system, right. that you really can be whatever you want to.
Right. And
so I refuse to work from a deficit because that would be the antithesis of what I want to do for the community.
No, facts. Side note, where you went to school, man? You went to Harvard? Oh my God! I'm about to go back and watch my own podcast and be Googling this stuff. Hold on. God,
I didn't graduate.
Wow.
I didn't graduate.
Come on, me neither. God, that's what I'm talking about, man. Yeah. But wow, that's amazing, man. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, now let's get into some fun stuff. So I know you got the Black Queer as Fuck. You had the festival. You got all this fun stuff going. Tell me a little bit about that. How did that go?
Man, we had 1,200 people come out our first year. It was a collaborative effort. Actually, you know what? What's overlooked about it is we launched 14 Black queer businesses at the festival.
Wow.
So we have a program called Project Liberate, and they go through 6 months of training to relaunch or launch their brand of businesses, and we launch it at the festival. But the festival was amazing. Don Richard and Duran Bernard performed their butts off. We had local talent. We had talent nationally. We had Sissy Nobi, a bounce artist, come through.
Okay.
And we're doing it for 2 more years. We're funded to do it 2 more years.
So that was one of your grants?
That was one of my grants.
Look, we got to talk after this.
Yeah. No, well, you know, what we did was, shout out to our grantors. But what we did was we wrote it into a couple different grants, different pieces, and then we got sponsors. So I'm happy to say that, you know, we were able to raise, you know, 75 plus.
Wow. From just sponsors?
From sponsors, yeah.
So how did you do that? How were you guys able to raise that much with just sponsors?
It's about a little bit of mission focus with good PR team and great writing. A great selling point. You know, most of the money that we used from our sponsors was because we gave out some free tickets. We gave out a lot of free tickets. We did Lyft rides if they needed to. But sponsors will really, they have to feel the mission. So we reached out to people that understood that if you can help us get this kind of money, we will have money to do more, not just events, but more tangible things for our community.
Right.
And so we reached out to people that you know, organizations and people that, you know, got the money to give. And then also just continually cultivating that relationship. Oftentimes as, you know, Black business people, especially if you are at the intersection of queerness, oftentimes we don't know the value of your network. Like we talk about your network is your net worth and all that kind of stuff, but we really don't, you know, focus into what that looks like. Your network is your net worth, and that's been my benefit because I'm connected to people with money, well, organizations.
No, and you know, I was gonna stop you, but I wanted to let you finish. But I heard when you put that in, I hope y'all didn't miss it when you said you reached out to, and I'm gonna paraphrase it, you reached out to people who had the money to give. Basically, that's what you said. Like we were reaching out to people not only, and what I'm taking from it is sometimes we're reaching out to people that's kind of, they don't have the money, or you're looking for them to give they rent money or this or that. You're not reaching out to somebody that has the budget or already had in their plans to support an amazing organization. They just needed to find out what that amazing organization is. So I like that. I like the way you roll, man. Look, I like the way you roll. Before I let you get out of here, you know, you touched on something really big, and I told you I was going to ask you about it on the podcast, which is de-stigmatizing certain stigmas. When you say that, what do you mean by that? And what are some of the stigmas that you feel like you had to overcome being a queer in business and just being like, you're amazing, bro. Like, how, like just becoming this person. What type of stigmas did you have to overcome?
Yeah, you know, first of all, like HIV. But I really want to spend time with destigmatizing and normalizing trans identifying people, trans bodies.
Can you speak on what, first of all, for anybody that's tuning in that might not know, when you say trans identifying and trans body, give us some clarification on that. What would that be?
Yeah, so when I say trans identifying, I mean like the umbrella of trans. That's trans men, trans women, that's non-binary, gender non-conforming. That's people, many times, you know, passability politics. And so what I mean by passability politics is that, like, many people feel like if you're going to be trans, if you're a trans woman, you want to be a woman, so you should look like a woman and you should do what women do. They're all kind of women, okay? So, and you don't have to understand it. You don't have to completely understand it to be a human and accept it, right? And when I say trans bodies, what's really interesting is, you know, Texas is deemed the capital of trans murders. Over 90% of trans murders are Black trans women. Wow. And most of those, not all, but a large percentage of those are not people that they don't know. They are, partners, whether, intimate or dating. A lot of it's domestic violence, and they don't often call it domestic violence because the laws are still trying to figure out language, right?
By domestic violence, you mean like, let's say if this is like a trans man and a man, like they basically looking like it's a man and a man fighting, so it's not domestic violence?
Or if it's a trans woman and a man, right?
Oh,
if it's a trans woman and a man,
right.
They still don't call it domestic violence because they are, misgendering the trans woman. Right?
Right.
And so it's really domestic violence. And so that's why I speak to the bodies, because a lot of it is just like society says that they're different, going back to normal anomaly, that they're different. And because they're different, I can't accept them. I can't understand them. And you don't have to understand. If you're uncomfortable with trans bodies, then don't sleep with a trans body. Okay? If you're uncomfortable with a person identifying as trans, then don't identify as trans. But it has nothing to do with you, right? And I think it's really as simple as people understanding like we're more alike than different. That trans person, while you're focusing on genitalia and outward appearance and passability politics, that trans person just wants to live. Y'all can, if y'all are in Houston, y'all will be able to see our billboard that's going to be up on Scott Street that says Black trans women deserve to grow old, because their life expectancy is under 35 years old.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. So if you don't mind, how old are you?
28.
28. I'm 30. I'll be 35 this year. According to statistics, they die somewhere between our age. Right? And so what's important about like uplifting that conversation is the fact that like they do deserve to grow old, and it's our, as cisgender people, although I'm not heterosexual, but cisgender folks, people that are
what's a cisgender?
Yeah, I was trying to think of words. Yeah. Cisgender means that you identify with the gender you were assigned at birth. So a male that identifies as a male, a woman that identifies as a woman.
Okay.
And so as cisgender folk, we have to do better jobs of being allies. And, if we want to ask questions that are respectful, but don't, just like with racism, you know what I mean? Like in certain spaces, it's comfortable for you to talk about, your questions about my blackness. But I don't need to be your teacher. Go learn yourself. But the goal for you is not to be racist. And what that literally means is don't put in structures that keep me from living my best life. In the same way, transphobia is not just about learning about trans people. It's about seeing the humanity in all people, whether a person is living with HIV, or they're trans, or they're gay, or they have a different ability, or like whatever that looks like. Your goal should always be to be the best human you are. And if you're asking questions from an inquisitive, I want to learn, I want to know place, ask them if they feel comfortable. Just like us African Americans will tell you, hey, that ain't my burden, right? And that should be fair for a trans person or a person living with HIV. But the goal is not for you to find out all of the information, to not be homophobic or serophobic or transphobic or, racist.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, facts. No. Dang, I like that. See, and that's how you know when you're interviewing somebody that love what they do, because you don't even gotta say nothing. They just they make your job so much easier because they just take it away, and it's like, yeah, go ahead and go get at them. This has been super fun. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and just educating us and giving us more background on everything that's going on in the community and just the things and different ways that we can get involved. But before I let you go, how can we find out more about you if we want to get involved with the organization even more, and just tell us where we can find you at?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on all platforms at Ian L. Haddock. Yes, the L is there. And then the Normal Anomaly is on all platforms at the Normal Anomaly. And if you want to learn more about the organization, you can go to www.normalanomaly.org. We also have a space for volunteering and donating. So if you want to give us your time, we are a nonprofit. We can give you those hours, whether you're in school, you got your own business, or you just want to help us out. And we also have our donation link so you can make this sustainable work. And if you have any programs, now don't bring me no programs without thinking about how we're gonna get some money. If you're telling me that I gotta do the work to get the money, then you ain't bringing me no program. You're bringing me an idea. But if you have programs,
facts.
if you have a program that you wanna, help implement in the community, or you wanna collaborate with, reach out to me, Ian L. Haddock, or ian@normalanomaly.org.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And that's going to be all for me. And I'll catch y'all in the next episode.